Well, good morning, everybody. Here I am after running around since 6:30 this morning and just getting back home. I wanted to do a video on an ancient text. And I think that this will shed light on a lot of what's going on in the world. And the name of my video today is Let There Be Light. And so I have the book that I'm going to use today is the Bible. More in terms of a spiritual read. I am not upholding any religious affiliation here. I am not upholding any group or organization. So I need for you all to understand that I am personally coming from a place of light. And there are many ancient texts out there. I have actually 3 or 4 of them here in my house. And I have another book that I'm going to be focusing on. Good morning, everybody. That I'm going to be focusing on in the future. I don't have any spiritual tools this morning. This isn't one video about that. This is a video about a passage in the Bible that I am going to read. And then what we are going to do is we are going to break down that passage. Now, it's interesting because I had recently had a talk with a youth about this. And this youth brought some very important aspects to my consciousness, which prompted me to want to go and look for myself. So I have 2 Bibles here. The first Bible that I'm going to use is the I believe it's the King James. Gosh, I'm sorry, I didn't even look. It's a new Bible that I bought. Just bear with me for a minute. Yes, it's the King James Version, modernized, so that the these and the thous are not in this book. Those are the only words that have been flipped. So this scripture verse that I'm going to read comes from the first book of Moses, called Genesis. And I'm going to focus on one line, but I need to read the first 2 lines prior. So here we go. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And this is the verse that I would like to focus on today. It's verse number 3. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. So we're just going to break down that one verse, number 3. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. So first of all, part of the problem that we all encounter is deciphering who God is. So I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to pick apart, in a good way, that one verse. I always thought that light was the first thing that existed. It was simple. And God said, "Let there be light." How simple is that? And the focus was on the light, because you need light when it's dark. Turn on a light in your living room. But there's another focus that many people skip over. And That is sound. So let's go back. And God said. The fact that there was somebody saying something, or some spiritual force saying something, that means that the sound preceded the light. And so let's think about sound. It could be a vibration. It could be a loud bang. It could be a pop. It could be many different sounds. It could be a convergence of many sounds together to form that one sound. And I found that really interesting and enlightening, that everybody is focusing on light, and that the sound is kind of pushed aside. Now, Anne said, or does it mean sound is light? Well, that's possible. The way I look at it, one is audible, you can hear it, and one is visual, you can see it. And if you put the two together, then it creates a whole different way of looking at it. So I was talking to this youth, and this youth said to me, it's not one precedes the other, or backwards. It's a simultaneous connection. And so I got to thinking about that, the whole gamut of the beginning, in the beginning, whatever the beginning was, or how we look at it in terms of a beginning as a starting point. In the beginning, when I first bought my house, in the beginning, when we first got married. So we know that it was a starting point of some sort. And then I want to move on. We'll get into that a little more. I want to move on to the latter part of that verse. And God said, let there be light. And where was I? And God said, the second part, let there be light. Now I want to focus on the word let. It's not necessarily that the word let is not a mandate. Let is not a command. Let is not force. Let means to allow. So God's voice, whoever God is, your God or higher power, God's voice did not command that there be light. God allowed for there to be light. And so let's take just this scripture verse and apply it to our own lives. I really feel that it is going to work. I don't know what's going on here. Excuse me, I'm going to move this down. Okay, thanks. I need to back up. So it's not so much that light was a mandate. It was an allowance. It was an allowance for all of the universe to join in and be in agreement that light was going to exist. And so if we look at this in terms of everything that is happening right now, okay, and also with what goes on in your own life, if we are to allow light to move in the way it should, and then we put up a barrier, then light can't exist. So one of the ways that we can allow the light to come in is by breaking down the barrier. So my reasoning for putting this up today is to just get you all to think about light in general. What does light do? Light reveals. If you go outside and you see light streaming through clouds and coming down in the woods, a lot of times you can see through the light and on to the other side. So not only is light revealing, but light is also very transparent. You can see from one side and into the other side. And so I think that it's really important right now that we focus on the light that God is giving us, the light that other voices are giving us. And in terms of voice, in terms of sound, this is how we all communicate. We use our voice. We use sound. We use it for good, and we also use it to be strong. We don't even need to say anything. If we're upset about something, we can pound something on the counter. That's sound. Nobody's saying anything, but you know that sound relays to the fact that whoever did that is angry. And so the anger fuels more anger, whereas the light reveals more light. So we've got polarized sides saying, we're the light, and we've got the other side saying, we're the light. And let's take two boulders. And these boulders, or let's take one boulder, excuse me. And in the middle of an earthquake, the vibration of an earthquake, this boulder cracks open, causing a great ravine, a great crack that somebody could fall down into. We don't know what's down underneath that. Maybe there's a cave, or maybe they'll slip so far down they won't even be able to see that the sun is shining. And they're stuck there. They're stuck there. And all of a sudden, light, the sun, rises up and shines in and lets that person know that there's hope. There's a way to get out. And yet nobody knows they're down there. And so the first thing that they do, if they can, is make noise, scream, yell. We need to get out. We need to get out. Or I need to get out. Help. I'm stuck in here. And the louder the noise, perhaps somebody will listen. So we need to stop and think about this. Is the noise light? Some of it is, absolutely. And some of it is just noise to be noise. But in the grand scheme of things, while we're searching within for what is light, it's probably a good idea to pull back and look at the whole picture. Because remember, when God said, "Let there be light," he was actually, or she, he or she, we were actually asking permission from all that was present at the time. And in our limited resources of the mind, we can only wonder a small smidgen of what that was. And since we know that God is a consciousness so much greater and so much more loving than any consciousness we experience in our daily lives, we need to trust that there's a big, big picture there. I wanted to read you one other version. This is from the Living Bible paraphrase. Now, I like to read all different kinds of biblical texts because that's just me. I like to allow there to be a voice in many different ways. So, let's just read how this Genesis in the Living Bible is mentioned. When God began creating, now that's a totally different version. When God began creating the heavens and the earth was at first a shapeless, couldn't make sense of it, chaotic mass, with the Spirit of God brooding over the dark vapors. Then God said, "Let there be light," and light appeared. Doesn't that just send chills? It's not, and there was light, and light appeared. So, as soon as God said, "Okay, everybody, we're gonna ask. We're gonna say, please, appear, light. We're gonna allow you to appear." And then light chose to appear. So, let me read that again. I want to make sure I'm explaining it right. Then God said, "Let there be light," and light appeared. And God was, is that the right one? Yes. Then God said, "Let there be light," and light appeared. It's not like light was forced to show up. Light was allowed to show up. And it did. And it appeared. And God was pleased with it. I'm not going to go on to the second half of that because that brings in a whole other scheme of what I'm trying to say today. But anyhow, I'm not going to keep going on this video. I just feel that it is really important for all of us to try to understand what that light is. And was it a visual? Was it a sound? Was it a vibration? I'm guessing it was all of it. It was all of it. Not one, not the other, but all of it. And there needed to be an allowance of all of that to come together to create that light. So, until there is a dialogue, a light-filled dialogue, we're not going to be able to see the whole picture. And that's within our own lives and also for the world at large. So, anyhow, today, folks, when you're out in your travels, choose the light. Look for the light. Sometimes the light is obscured in places we least expect it. And even a tear. When a tear falls out of the eye and down on the cheek, and the sun catches it, it shines with light. So for today, folks, choose the light and choose to know that you are loved, all of you, both sides, regardless of what's going on. I have my own opinions in word, but unless you hear somebody actually expressing their words like it was written and deciphered, and really you pull back, you take a deep breath, and you start to ask for the light to be revealed, you can't see it. So, open minds, open hearts, open doors. But first, there was darkness. Have a great day, folks. I love you all. See you next time. God bless. Be present. Look for the light. You'll find it. Take care.